Welcome to the Shutter. I've been posting videos every day, and I plan to continue while this quarantine is in effect. I'll be putting together a series of Bigfoot classics this week, and I've got several viewer submissions to do, along with another collaboration with Cam from Dixie Cryptid, so everybody should be looking forward to that. If you've got a story to tell, it doesn't have to be an encounter story, just a strange happening, something that made you shudder. Send it to me. I'll be happy to tell it. My email is in the description. Okay, I've got 3 creepy Dogman accounts for you. The last 2 are from a mother and son who both had separate experiences in the same area. Alright, get ready and settle in. I had been up all night at a friend's house playing video games. I didn't want to sleep there, so I told everyone good night and headed home. I knew my car was making a funny knocking noise, but I was pretty sure I could make it to the house. I was driving down a long, dark stretch of highway with nothing but forest and a few sparse country houses. I was coming up to the top of a long hill when suddenly my car stops pulling forward. The engine revved, but no gears would engage. My CV joint went out. I was hoping that wouldn't happen. I had no way of getting it home, so I backed up down the road in neutral and off into a side road. I thought about staying and sleeping in my car, but something told me not to do that. I had an eerie feeling of being watched, so I grabbed my video game case and a machete that I had made from a lawnmower blade and started walking. I kept getting the feeling I was being followed. I kept looking behind me, but saw nothing. A car passed by heading in the other direction and illuminated the area with its headlights. I could see something behind me in the ditch, hunched down low. It was huge. I could tell it looked like some animal, but had humanoid features. It seemed to have arms, but its head was most definitely canine. Its head was very large, and its eyes glowed red when the lights hit them. I've seen enough werewolf movies to know this wasn't a good situation, so I started running. That probably wasn't the best choice, because I know that predators like to chase things that run. When the car had passed, the creature had darted into the trees. I thought that was the best time to run, so I did. I ran for about a quarter mile and looked back but didn't see anything, so I kept walking. I kept checking behind me and off to the side where the tree line was. I knew it was still out there and probably following me, and yeah, I was afraid. But I was also prepared to defend myself with my lawnmower blade machete if need be. I came up over a hill and saw a farmhouse in the distance, down a long dirt driveway. The moon was almost full, and the area around the house was clear. I could see a guy out there messing with his truck as I walked by. Then he turned on a spotlight on his truck and spotted me with it. I kept walking. His property said no trespassing, and many out there wouldn't hesitate to unload on a strange trespasser. I knew it was close again, possibly closer now, and was about to turn and face it when another car came over the hilltop. I noticed this time it was a cop, so I dropped my machete on the edge of the grass and waved. As he passed, his lights hit the ditch, and I saw that the creature was very close, but it darted into the trees again when the lights hit it. Thankfully, he stopped and turned around. He came back and asked me what I was doing out there, so I told him what happened with my car. I didn't mention the creature. He may have thought I was crazy. I asked him for a ride home, but he wanted to go and check and make sure my car wasn't blocking the road. After we checked it, he agreed to take me home. I don't know what might have happened that night if he hadn't showed up. It was the only time I was genuinely happy to see a police officer. This encounter happened at my grandparents' lake cabin, south of the town of Danbury, Wisconsin, east of Highway 35 around Devil's Lake. My background has always been the great outdoors, playing and exploring in the woods. I was 15 at the time and was very comfortable going out by myself for all-day adventures. On the night of this encounter, I had gone to sleep at around 10 p.m. It was summer, so no school. It was warm. I had the bedroom window slightly cracked for some air circulation and to hear the crickets and outside noises. This would put me right to sleep. My grandparents' bedroom was on the other side of the cabin. They had a black Labrador retriever that would sleep in my room most of the time. I had fallen asleep. I didn't know exactly what time it was, but it was late and everyone else was asleep. I awoke suddenly, feeling something was wrong. Still groggy, the first thing I noticed was that nothing outside was making any noise. No crickets, frogs, whippoorwills, nothing but silence. I held my breath for a minute, listening very intently, thinking that was odd. I could see by the nightlight from the hallway my grandparents' dog was not laying in his normal spot or anywhere in my room. I guess maybe 2-3 minutes had passed, and then I heard it. I heard what sounded like a raccoon or some other animal scratching outside the cabin. I wondered what the heck could have been making that noise. It was still totally silent, except the scratching noise that it began to move down the wall, closer to my window. It was very dark outside, but I could still make out the slight silhouette of the trees and branches up high. All at once, the scratching stopped. I strained to adjust my eyes, and that's when it stepped out of the shadows and blocked out the view of the trees. It was huge. I couldn't make out any features of its body, but I could see the distinct ears of a canine on a large head. Then I saw its eyes. I was paralyzed. It was hunched down, looking in the window. Its eyes were a glowing amber color, and it blinked several times. My mind was racing. Can it see me? What is it going to do? What am I going to do? I could hear it breathing. It let out an exhale that was deep, but not overly loud. Then it began to sniff the air. I could hear it clearly. It was only about 10 or 12 feet away. About 20 seconds had elapsed, which felt like forever. The creature began to show its teeth, almost like a grin of satisfaction that it had scared me so badly. Then it stood up off its haunches and walked off in the direction of the lake. I knew this was my chance. I jumped out of bed and into the hallway away from the window. I was breathing heavily. I think I held my breath for over 2 minutes. I looked into the living room and could see the dog standing totally still in a rigid posture, his hair standing on end, looking at the deck window. I turned to the hall closet and grabbed my 20-gauge shotgun and loaded it. It was only a single shot, but it was better than nothing. Then I realized if it wanted to come into the house, it could easily do it by breaking the glass. If it did that, I had no place to go. I was trapped between my bedroom and that patio window to my grandparents' room. I stood, waiting for about 5 minutes, and nothing happened. The dog calmed down and walked over to me and sat down. I thought about waking my grandparents and telling them what I had seen, but at the time didn't think they would believe me. After all, I didn't believe it myself. I calmed down and went back to my bedroom, pulled the covers off my bed, and laid on the floor with the gun and the dog at the ready. I laid there in a half sleep for the rest of the night. I didn't want to get close to that window, so I waited till dawn before I closed it and locked it. Once daylight was in full force, I went outside to see if I could find any scratches on the wall or anything else like footprints. I didn't find anything and was starting to wonder if I was going crazy. No, this thing was real. I continued to sleep on the floor for about a week. That window has stayed closed and locked ever since. I didn't have any other encounters with a Dogman after that incident, and had put it out of my mind until recently. You don't know what true fear is until you see one of these things up close. I never want to experience anything like that ever again. This is a difficult thing for me to write down. I had no idea what a cryptid was until my son told me about his encounter. All these years, I had thought what I saw was just a very deformed bear. Just so you know, I was driving that night, and I never drink and drive. I was completely sober. I haven't talked about my encounter since it happened, until I told my son. Since then, I have told my best friend. She encouraged me to contact you. Most evenings, just about an hour before dark, we enjoyed going for deer rides. We had a route we would always use. It started out on Rustic Road, which was southwest of our cabin on Long Lake, just south of Danbury. The route took us to a place that went through a wildlife preserve, and then we ended up on a road that goes from Hinckley, Minnesota to Danbury, Wisconsin. The road through the preserve always made me uncomfortable because it was a swampy bog on both sides of the road. It was a narrow gravel road, and in order to turn around, you would need to go down a very narrow drive to a parking area for hunters. I had only been in one of those parking areas once, and it creeped me out. We never saw deer on that road, so we typically went fast in that area. We would have avoided that gravel road altogether, but we always saw deer just before the preserve and just after. On this evening, it was just my sister-in-law and I that went for the deer ride. This happened 15 or 16 years ago, so we didn't have cell phones. It was a hot night, and we had our windows down. The air conditioner wasn't working. I was driving a big car, a '98 Cadillac. We had just started down that creepy road when we noticed something black about half a mile up ahead. We were driving pretty fast. As we got closer, it appeared to be dark gray in color. It also appeared to have an elongated muzzle. It had its back to us, but it was a little sideways, and we could tell it was eating something in the road. I stopped the car and just kept my foot on the brake. This animal had a very wide, muscular shoulders, and its fur was longer than a bear's. Its ears were pointy like a German shepherd and stood straight up on its head. This animal had hands. It was holding a dead rabbit, I think. I looked at Amy and asked, "What is that?" I think I was verbalizing every thought that came into my head. I was totally freaked out. The animal noticed us. That's when I turned on my headlights. It wasn't dark yet, but I wanted to see this thing better. It turned and faced the car. The headlights caught its eyes, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Its eyes glowed reddish-orange in the headlights. I freaked. This creature looked demonic in nature. Then it stood up straight on its back legs. As this thing moved, it was jerky, like it wasn't comfortable in its own skin. It was not a natural movement. The animal sprinted at my car. It took at least 6 steps. I gunned the car right at it in a panic. I was terrified. It turned right, still upright, then dropped to all fours. Its legs had an odd bend in them, like backward knees. I just screamed, "What is that?" It ran into the swamp, and we got the heck out of there. We stopped on the road to our cabin. By then, it was dark. When we stopped, Amy and I both cried. We couldn't stop shaking. We talked about what we had just seen. We both agreed we would tell people we had seen a bear. To be honest, at the time, I thought it was a deformed bear. Today, I know it was not. I'm no longer in denial. What I saw, I cannot understand or explain. It was plain evil in nature. It was just wrong. Very wrong. Man, I hate Dogman. It's not that I don't believe they're out there. I just don't want to believe that they're out there. Unfortunately, the more I hear accounts like these, the more uneasy I get about it. Well, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give us a like and a share. Don't forget to subscribe and go hit that bell so you can join me back here next time for The Shutter.